Okay, we are live. So I'm gonna Hey everybody, it's Sarah from Ruthie's. I hope y'all are having a great day. Today we are going to be discussing more about the Luminaire and the Stellaire. This is a live video, so it's broadcasted on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Tina Bartelmay joining us, and I'm going to get her on here. Thank you so much for joining us. These are so nice to have the virtual ones.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get to rewatch them, and these will be posted afterwards also. So, and if you have any questions, you can always comment them in the comment section. And every 15 minutes or so, we will go and do a comment break and question break. And then everybody will get to ask their questions. So here is Miss Tina, everybody.
Hey, everybody. It's good to see you again virtually. And the best part of virtuals for me is I get to do them with my shoes off.
No one will ever know.
That's true. All right. So today we have all kinds of fun things to talk about with the Stellaire and the Luminaire. We're going to look at techniques. We're going to look at some of the apps that you can use with your machines. Hey, Pam, how are you? Good to see you. So what do you think, Sarah? You got any surprises coming up today too?
I got a couple surprises. We have some awesome specials. We're going to go over some few accessories that you can use with your machines. And I'm sure you're going to give them some tips and tricks as well that they can use with their machines. And even if you don't have a machine, this is a great way to watch and see what they're all about and kind of see the differences between them.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great opportunity to see the differences between the two machines and figure out which one is the best for you.
Yeah. So yes, we got some awesome things surprising you upcoming in this live. You'll just have to keep watching to find out.
Awesome. That sounds exciting.
Well, all righty. I'm going to pass it to you. Let me.
All right. All
Okay,
right.
we're good.
All right. So I'm going to get started today on the Stellaire. So I'm just going to move over to the Stellaire really quickly here. All right. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Stellaire, there's two versions. There's the embroidery only and the embroidery sewing. I'm using the combo machine today. Now it's got some great features. It has a 9.5 by 14-inch hoop that goes with it. It's got a brand new positioning system called My Design Snap, which we'll play with during the day. And of course, like my favorite brother machines, it's got Disney designs on board too. So let's do a little general let's look at some of the things that are in here. First of all, across the top, you can see it's a wirelessly enabled machine, but let's talk about the support that you have for your machine directly on the machine itself. So there's an icon here that looks like a video. So when we push this, you can see you can access your manual on here. You can get information about the patterns that are on the machine. You can even watch videos about how to do things on the machine, right? So let's say that I have a question about embroidery. Maybe it's, how to put the hoop on the machine. I can just play the video right here at the machine without even going to get my manual. Don't be confused that there's no sound. That's on purpose because we have the same videos across several countries. So you haven't lost your hearing. There's actually no sound on these videos. But lots of great information that's available right at your fingertips here. A couple other things to just know about is your settings. So that's going to be the icon at the top. Kind of looks like a piece of paper. So when we come in here, this is where you can set things up for your preferences, in terms of the lighting or how you want your presser foot to act during sewing, those types of things. There's lots of pages of different settings in here. So if you're looking to set your machine up in a specific function, this is basically where you do it. And I'm actually toggling over towards the end of those the settings pages because I want to look at a few things in here. So first of all, here on page 9, this is where you can set your machine up to work wirelessly. That's a really nice feature. With the wireless LAN enablement, that works in concert with some of the apps. It's also a way that you can send designs directly to your embroidery machine from your computer without a flash drive. So you would simply turn it on, go through the setup wizard here, give it a name, and then you're ready to go. There are also a couple of the apps. I get asked very often, well, how do I get information on the app? Well, you see here on settings page 9, there's an app guide here. And so you can see Artspira, which we'll talk about later on today, and My Design Snap, and you just choose the one you're interested in. And if you take your phone and take a picture of the QR code, it'll take you right to the place in the appropriate Play Store for you to download that. So lots of great information right here for you on the machine. Don't forget that, of course, that periodically we update the firmware on your machine. And so you're going to want to check on the Brother Support site to see what firmware update we're on. And then you can put that information on a blank flash drive, and there's a process in your operation manual for how you upgrade your firmware. And sometimes it's improving some of the functions on the machine. Sometimes it's adding new functionality. So for example, when Artspira was released last summer, one of the firmware updates basically integrated it here in with the machine. So don't forget your firmware updates. They happen once or twice during the year. And so periodically just set a reminder for yourself to check and see what version you have on your machine. All right. So that's some basic overview information. Uh-oh. Got to turn it off and turn it on again here. Give it just a second here. So now I think we're going to go in and start looking at some of the designs on the machine and some specialty techniques that are associated with those. All right, and so this is the normal startup routine. It's calibrating my hoop right now. So I'm going to get started in the embroidery part of the machine. So we'll pop in here to embroidery. And you can see you've got several different categories of designs directly on the machine. So each one of these is a category. You've got fonts on here, so personalizing things or putting a message on it. You've got some decorative fonts here in number 3. You've got some frames. Those are awesome for making quilt labels as an example, or putting them around a monogram. You have decorative stitches here, and of course you've got the Disney designs, which are amazing. But I thought maybe we'd start off with some applique features that are on the machine itself. So I'm going to pop into category 11 here, and I'm going to open up this little teapot design here. All right, so you can see how it opens up directly on the machine. You got some important information here, the size of the design. Here you can see the stitch count, how long it takes to stitch out, how many colors are in the design. And this is where you can adjust the lighting so that you can kind of audition it on your fabric. So, if I had light fabric, this would be great. If I were getting ready to stitch it on a dark fabric, I might adjust over here. All right, so we'll go ahead and set it. That's what you do to bring an embroidery design in. And you'll notice right away that you've got special characters, the first 3 thread colors. So the first one here, I don't know if you can see, but it's got a little pair of scissors on it. And then this one is also a special character. We'll talk about that in 1 second. And then this one you can see looks like a blanket or a finishing stitch for an applique. So the applique designs that are on the machine automatically have these features. But I want to talk about this for a second, because I'm sure lots of you are like me, where you may have an applique design from the way back times before we even had cutting machines. And so they may not have a cut file to allow you to pre-cut your fabric on the scan and cut, right? And so if you had one of those designs, what you could do is go to change the thread colors, and then you'll sort of look through the different stitch sequences. It's easy to see on this one that this number 1 is my placement line. And typically your placement line is what you cut out of your fabric, right? And so if your embroidery design from, wherever you have it from does not have a cut file, you can isolate that placement line. And a couple things you're going to want to do. These are different thread palettes that are on the machine, and there's several of them on here, but you're going to want to use the arrows until you get to the one that's called embroidery. And then you'll scroll all the way down to the bottom, And these last three characters are for applique. So if you change the color of your placement line to this one here, the third from the end that has the scissors on it, and save your design, when you take that design over to your Scan and Cut will realize that that's the cut line, and it will actually cut out your fabric so that it will perfectly fit your applique without you having to do any fussy cutting in the hoops. So I love that feature on the machines. It's true for the Stellaire, the Luminaire, and the multi-needles as well. So it's a really nice capability on the machines to make it really easy for us to do applique without having to fussy cut in the hoop. All right. So Sarah, any questions so far?
Let me look. Not so far. We got a couple people who said hey. So Gary and Tony, they said hey. And Miss Lisa McCormick, they said hey.
Okay. Oh, it's nice to spend the afternoon with you guys. I'm sorry I don't get to see you in person, but that's coming up soon too. All right.
Yes.
So that's how you can add applique to a design. Let's look at some other things though. Let's come in and let's grab another one of the applique designs in that same category. And this is this adorable little kitty cat with yarn. Isn't that adorable? I just love that design. But this time, maybe I want to put some quilting around my design, right? That's something that we like to do. And so that also is very easy to do on this machine. So here you can see I've got all my elements for the applique. I'll simply go into Edit, all right? And I have an icon right here that looks like a stipple stitch. So we'll go ahead and push that. And then right here at the machine, you can see that it will add stippling. Notice it's not under my design, it's not over my design. It actually leaves a void around my design. So that's a really nice feature. A couple of things as you're using this, right? It's important that you choose the hoop size that you're actually intending to use, right? Otherwise, your stipple stitch will extend outside of your hoop. And when you try and load the hoop, it'll tell you to change to a larger frame. And then you've got a couple of adjustments here. So the distance one is a really nice feature. You know, a lot of times you have these small internal spaces in a design and you don't really want to cram those stipple stitches in there. And so what this does is it just creates a little space buffer around your design before the quilting stitch starts. And so that's a nice feature. And then the spacing allows you to adjust the tightness of your stipple. So if I go in the negative direction, I'm making it much tighter. So that's going to be more along the lines of what people call micro stipple. So lots and lots of stipple stitches coming in there. And then of course I can preview here to see the changes. And then if I want to go in the opposite direction, which is typically what we would do on a quilting project, because that'd be a lot of stitching and that would add some stiffness to a quilt, we'll take it in the opposite direction and we'll loosen up that stipple and then we'll preview that. And something like that is probably more of what we would be doing in a quilting project. But super quick and super easy to add the quilting. Now it is also possible, so let's come out of here. I'm going to cancel that. It's also possible for you to use the decorative fills that are in the design center as your quilting stitches with a design like this, but the process is a little bit different on the Stellaire. So in that case, I would come in here and I would use my stamp key. It's the one here that looks like a flower. And this is where I'm adjusting that distance out, right? So I'm just going to give it a little buffer of space, not a whole lot, just a little bit here. And then when I have that adjusted the way I like it, I'm going to press the memory key. And if the machine is going to come back and tell me that it saved it to my design center and it's in the stamp patterns list. So that's the icon I'll find it from. So we'll simply say okay here. Now I want to add those quilting stitches, right? So I'm going to press add. But rather than picking another design here, I'm going to select my design center. All right. And then this is the stamp key. This is where it told me to look for it. And you notice I have lots of things here. I have closed shapes. I have some more closed shapes. I have open shapes. And we'll talk about some of this later on. But there's that same icon, the stamp key. It looks like the flower. And so the last thing I saved is going to be the first thing in my list. So there's my little kitty cat. And I'll press OK. Okay. Now, what I like to do is I could come into the shapes and I could make myself a rectangle to represent the hoop, but it's faster to come right back into the shapes key and then go to the hoops. And I'll go ahead and use that same 9.5 by 14 hoop I did a second ago here. And so now I have a space between the cat and the frame where I can add my fill, right? And also if I wanted to put any kind of decorative stitch outlining the cat, I could do that as well. So as you're looking here on the Design Center, this first 4 buttons here are properties for the lines. So that would be converting those lines into things like a run stitch or a blanket stitch or a V-stitch, something like that. My next set of 4 are for my quilting fills, right? This is erase. We've done the shapes key. That's cut, of course. That's select, size, and rotate. So that's basically how this page is organized. So like if we wanted to put a stitch around the cat, we could come in here. I don't know. We might put a run stitch on it. And I'm just going to pick a color so I can see the color change. And then to apply that, I simply touch the bucket or the flood fill. And then I touch the cat, and he's changed colors now, which means I've now assigned a run stitch to those lines. So now let's go ahead and add our quilting fill. So again, I told you the fill area is right here. So we'll go into settings. Now here my choices are solid fill, stipple, which we did on the embroidery side, no sew, and then my quilting fills are in this third category over here. So we'll choose select. And we got some really nice options on this particular machine. So you can see I've got 15 decorative fills that I can use. I kind of think the fish one might be fun with the cat. So I'm going to choose the fish. And I pick a color that'll be dark enough that you can see it. I'm going to make it purple so it'll show it well on the screen. And then again, to apply the fill, it's the bucket or the flood fill. And I touch inside of the hoop rectangle and outside of the cat. And there you can see it's applied the fish fill, okay? Now, at this point, I can still make some modifications to my choices. I'll simply go to the next page here. Now, when you're on this page, the thing that you're editing, of course, is going to show up in the window. So we're editing the fish fill at this point. And I actually am going to change the size of the pattern. That's a lot of fish. I'm afraid my cat might be a little afraid of that. So we're just going to take that fill pattern and make it quite a bit bigger. So I'll still get the general feel for it, but it'll be a little bit less dense. And then my next option is to change the angle. So I don't know if you can see, but the fish right now are going straight up and down. I kind of want to put them at an angle. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to put in a 45-degree angle and we'll set that. All right. And then let's go ahead and preview and see if we like our work. All right. So it's telling us what we're doing here and we'll let it update. Isn't that cute? So that's probably a better amount of fish in here. It's got that nice diagonal slant to it, which I like. So at this point, I'm all done making my adjustments and I'll simply choose set. And that's letting me know I've left the Design Center and now I've added one of the decorative fills to my applique pattern. So really pretty quick and pretty easy, but 2 different ways that you can add quilting. And this is true not just for applique designs, but other designs on the machine as well. All right. So, the last thing that we really probably need to add to this is a little bit of text. What do you think, Sarah? You think we should add a little message here?
Yeah, might as well.
So let's do that. You can see again, I've got my add button and we talked about the fonts earlier. So let's come in here to fonts. You've got lots of great selections here. You can see you've got script fonts, you've got block fonts, serif, non-serif, fancy, plain. And you've even got some micro fonts in here, so you've got quite a bit to work with. I don't even know. I think I'm going to choose this one. What if we put something like, "You are the cat's meow"? That's kind of fun.
I like that.
So we're just going to come in here, and I actually think I'm going to make the top part of it circle text too. So let's come in here and type out our sentiment. So of course, we're on capitals, so we can leave it all capitals, or if you wanted lowercase letters, of course, they're there. I'm just going to do it quick and leave them all capitals. As I'm looking at that letter's kind of big to fit on my project. So I'm just going to come over here. You'll notice I have an A and an ABC. I'm going to select ABC because I'm going to resize my letters using the using my LMS key here. We'll just do that again. All right. So I'm going to resize my letters using the size key, and I want it to apply to all the letters. So again, ABC is all highlighted. So I'm on large. We'll look at medium. That's probably a better size. So now I can just finish typing out what I'm trying to say here. Let's see. Now all I have to do is talk and spell correctly at the same time. It's not as easy as it sounds. All right. So there's the first part of my message. And like I said, I want to have it curved above the cat. So the way I do that is you see there's a button here that says array. And in here, I have lots of different ways that I can line up my text. This would be like the top of the circle, the bottom. This one would do it stair steps. This one would be a really tight circle. And this would put it inside of the bottom. So this is the one I want here. And then once I'm in there, these two buttons allow me to adjust how tight or loose the circle is. And that's really tight. So I'm just going to relax the curve a little bit here. Flatten it up just a little bit and then set OK. Now, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hit set here. Don't be concerned that it's on top of the cat because we're actually going to move it during the next step. So that looks great to me. My letters are highlighted. And so I'm just going to come into edit and choose the move key and then use the up arrows to get that right above the cat, probably balance it right in there. So that is pretty easy, right? I thought that was pretty easy. So now let's add the cat's meow underneath. So we'll just, the same kind of thing. We'll come in, add, go to the fonts. You can pick the same font or a different font. It really doesn't matter. Again, I'm going to start typing and I know I've got to adjust to that same size. All right. So my punctuation marks are in here. So I'll get the apostrophe and then I'm back over here and there's the space. All right. So that looks great. I'll go ahead and set it. And by the way, when you're here, and Brother's actually known for how easy it is to work with text on the machines. But you know, you might want to audition, if you would, other fonts, but you don't really want to type out cat's meow 100 times, right? So if you go to this button right here, you can actually, leaving it typed, you can say, well, what does it look like with that font? Oh, what does it look like in that font? What does it look like with this font, right? And so you can basically cycle through and audition lots of different fonts right here without retyping your message, which I really love that because, you know, I don't like to make up my mind until the last minute. So I'm going to go ahead and finalize this one.
I was about to say, I used to type out sentences and then didn't like the font, so I'd have to like delete it and then retype it out. And I absolutely love that just small feature, just a tap of a button, you can switch them out.
I know, because a lot of times, you know, I don't know about you, Sarah, but, you know, there's always that one letter in any font that you end up not liking, right?
Yeah.
But you can't anticipate what it is until you try to use it.
Same. We do have a question.
Yeah.
They said, could you use a stylus to move it up?
Yes, you could use a stylus as well. I just don't have my stylus out. That's why I'm using the move keys here. But yep, absolutely.
And also a wired mouse.
Yeah, a wired mouse would work with this as well. So now my cat's meow is active, so I'm just going to go into edit and use my move keys. Now I will say when you're working with text, right, I could use my finger on here and that would be fine, except sometimes your finger doesn't go straight down. Sometimes it goes a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. If you are trying to keep it centered by using the move key and the down or the up arrow, then you are keeping it vertically centered in your field. So that's another reason to think about using those arrow keys. All right. So what do you think? That was some pretty easy work. We did a lot of stuff, right? We added quilting 2 different ways. We played around and manipulated our text and actually it was really easy and fun. So why don't we go over and look at a couple samples? What do you think about that?
Yes. Miss Pam said, love the design.
Oh, thank you, Pam. I appreciate that. All right, so we're just going to switch over here to samples. So here's that little teapot. Look how adorable that design is. And again, I didn't do any fussy cutting in the hoop. I basically took the design over to my scan and cut, and because it had that special color assigned, it knew exactly what to cut out of the fabric, right? So really cute. It's a fun little item for spring or a quick gift for someone. This is another fun design that's on the Stellaire. I love this design. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but basically these are organza, and so it looks like the bulbs are actually rooting in a glass vase sort of behind the organza, which is adorable. And then you've got a completely different font up here. that we're looking at. And so some cute designs on the machine. Of course, here's our little cat. Look how much cuter he looks with fabric in him. Isn't that the cutest cat ever?
I love that. And Miss Pam said, is that in the Luminaire?
I don't remember. When we get over to the Luminaire, we'll have to look and see. I honestly don't remember. And I've got the stipple in here with white thread. It's a little hard to see on the camera, but we do have stippling all around the little kitty cat and the text. So a really cute and fun design. It makes for great gifts. And then, of course, here's some other designs that are in the Stellaire, just talking about, adding text to a design. This, to me, is very Florida, right? Let's flamingo with these adorable little flamingos. Isn't that cute? Totally love that one. And then here's an example, just in case you think that maybe you can't add fonts to an outside design. Here's a little garden flag using a butterfly that I believe I brought in from the 10 needle, but then I added all the text on it with the Stellaire. So you can add and shape your fonts and your messages around designs that are on the machine and those that you bring in from the outside as well. All right, so let's see. Sarah, do we have any questions?
We do not have any questions yet.
All right, well then let's get back over to the Stellaire and let's start doing a couple more things here. All right, so next up, I thought maybe we would do a little quick review of some of the beautiful Disney designs on here, and then I've got some samples I'll show you in a few minutes. But to get to your Disney designs, and again, that's unique to other machines, just pop in here, and you notice we got all kinds of categories of Disney. So in number 1, we've got beautiful Mickey and Minnie and Pluto and Donald Duck. And hold on this one, because some of these designs are really big. Look at this guy. He's almost 13 inches tall, 9 inches wide. He stitches out really nicely. And you've got some smaller ones in here as well. So I have this one stitched out and this one on a jean jacket that are really cute. And then let's come in here. You got some of the more vintage Mickey designs in here, including a little Mickey Mouse head turned into like quilting stitches. So that'd be super fun on a Disney themed quilt. That's awesome. Of course, we got Winnie the Pooh. This is my daughter's favorite, and we're going to be using this little Pooh in just a minute to do some patchwork. But really cute Winnie the Pooh designs on here. We've got the Disney princesses. So Cinderella, Snow White, Little Mermaid. You even got some freestanding lace, tiara, and jewelry set down here that are really nice right here on the machine itself. Of course, we've got Frozen, super popular. You've got Simba from Lion King, Bambi's in here. You've got some things from Aladdin, Tinkerbell, one of my favorites. So you've got lots of things in here as well. Even Alice in Wonderland and the Cheshire Cat are in here. So lots and lots of variety in your Disney designs. And of course, then we also have in here, we've got Cars and Toy Story and Monsters, Inc. And I forget the one with the little fish. That's terrible. I forgot. Is that Nemo? Nemo.
Yeah.
My husband's telling me I failed my Disney quiz. That's okay. All right. So lots and lots of fun Disney designs. But I thought maybe we'd come back in and talk about making patches, because I don't know how many of you are making patches, but patches are super duper popular right now. They're a great business opportunity. Of course, not with the Disney designs. You have to use a non-licensed one, but they're a great business opportunity if you're looking to make things and put them out there for sale. So let's come into the Winnie the Pooh category. And I'm going to grab this adorable little Pooh here. And you can see he's got several colors in here. And he's kind of on the small side, so he's a little bit less than 2 by 2 inches, but that's a great size for a patch. And I'll go ahead and set it. Now, to turn this from an embroidery design into a patch is incredibly easy. I'm just going to pop into Edit here. And this icon here that looks like a badge is called the Easy Applique icon. And notice he came in, and so he's got a placement line and he's got a satin stitch border. And literally that's all that is required to turn any embroidery design into a patch. So it couldn't be any easier than that. Now, a couple other features on the machine that are super handy when you're doing patches, because again, it's about 2 by 2 inches, right? Even your smallest hoop is large enough to accommodate more than one. And if you're using a bigger hoop, you can get several of them in a hoop, right? So I could manually kind of copy paste, but that sounds like a lot of work. So we also have on here something called the border function. So it's this one right here, kind of looks like 9 little squares. And this is your supercharged copy and paste utility on the machines. It is on both the Stellaire and the Luminaire. And so right now I'm going to add additional patches vertically. So this one with a plus at the top adds another patch on top. At this point, I kind of say, ooh, those are really close together. This button here makes them further apart. This one makes them closer together. I'm gonna put them a little further apart here. Let's go ahead and use this key and add one underneath. And if I'm using that big hoop, I can probably get another one on top and another one on bottom. Now, a little subtle here, but you know, I only adjusted the spacing between the first two, but the machine is so smart, it maintained that same spacing as I added additional patches, right? So that's a really fun technique. And then if I want to add horizontally, I simply go to this one where the 3 squares are going this way, and let's add a row to the left. And again, kind of tight, so I'm going to do that same button and spread those out a little bit. And then let's go ahead and add another over here. And so, I mean, that's a lot of patches that I could get done in a single hooping, which I really appreciate. And then the other thing that's really fun is, remember when we looked at poo and it looked like, you know, you did a little red, then you did the gold, then you did some black, and then now we would have the new applique. Because I use the border function, you'll see when I come into embroidery, it's already color sorted all the colors. So it's set the design up for maximum efficiency. So it's gonna, you can see as I kind of scroll through here, it's gonna do all those little red sections on all of the little poos, then it's gonna move on to the next color. So that's a really efficient way to do your patches. So let's go over and let's pop over to the camera and let's look at some samples and talk about a few more things here relative to our patch.
I'm so sorry. Is that feature on the 10 needle?
It is. Yep.
It is. Okay.
Definitely is. All right. So here we are. So if you've never used the Easy Applique feature on the machines to make a patch, it may work a little differently than you're expecting, right? And so here you can see I just have one of the little winnies. And so it does the design and then it stitches out what looks like a placement line around the edges, right? And so when you read your manual about what you do at this point, they want you to take out a pair of scissors and cut right on that stitch line where it looks like a placement line, okay? And then you would re-hoop. And typically when you're doing patches, this one is on fabric just so it'll hold up better. But typically then you would have a heavy duty water soluble stabilizer in your hoop, right? And then it's going to restitch that same placement line. And then here's my little piece that I took my scissors and cut out. And he sits right inside of that second placement line. And then it's going to run the satin stitch all the way around the edges. And so you can have a perfect patch even if you don't have a scan and cut, if you can, you know, cut on that line. So it's a kind of a nice feature. And then basically this is what it looks like when you add the satin stitch border. Isn't that cute? So it's really very simple to do patches. And then while we're talking about Disney, let's look at a few more of the Disney samples here. So here's that Mickey. Remember I said he's like 13 inches tall and 9 wide. And I've actually done him as a patch. So I stitched him on base fabric because I wasn't really sure what I was going to put him on. And then I decided later, I re-hooped him and actually added the patch functions with the satin stitch and whatnot. And then I put the iron-on fusible on the back and I literally ironed him onto this tote bag. So that's also a nice technique, especially, you know, people who are worried about maybe, you know, messing up a jacket or something else. You can always stitch these out as patches and then iron them onto the coat or whatever else you're working on without having to worry about it. Here's that little applique design that I pointed out earlier when we were looking through the Disney designs done on the back of a jean jacket. Isn't that adorable? I really like this design a lot. And then just to kind of theme the rest of the jacket, I took the Minnie and the Mickey heads and made little smaller patches and put them on the yoke here on the front. So I got a little Disney action. Of course, then I had to add my buffalo plaid ribbon strips around the sleeves, but really quick and easy to make some adorable, you know, Disney projects. using those designs on the machine. Here's another one that makes a great jacket. So this one's on a white jean jacket. Isn't that fun? It's a nice big design. You know, it stitches fine over the seams on either side, and then you end up with this kind of interesting impressionistic Mickey. So Sarah, what's your favorite Disney design?
It has to be probably the Frozen. Me and my sister do a lot of that. The princesses, Disney princesses, the large
Yep.
Mickey. Mimi loves those. I've put those on jackets, just regular fabric. Me and my little sister have turned it into like a little pillowcase type of deal.
Yeah.
They're so fun, and you can do so much with them.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think I've ever been in your store that you didn't have the big Mickey and the big Minnie stitched out.
Yeah, we may give it away, but we'll sew another one.
Yep, I would agree. All right. Do we have any questions before I keep?
We do not. So Miss Judy, the Disney is not on the 10 needle, but you can do the patch feature on that Tina showed on the 10 needle. So that
And if
feature.
Yeah, so for those of you who have the multi-needle, the 6 or the 10, they don't have Disney designs on them because the licensing agreement the brother has with Disney is for personal use. But brother does have a website. It's called ibroidery.com. So the word embroidery, just take off EM on the front and put an I there. And we've got Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, all those kinds of designs there. So it is an option. It won't let you set. It still won't let you stitch them out on the multi needles because again, those are for commercial use.
Okay, so our next question. So you would stitch the design on heavyweight first? Heavy.
Yeah, typically the way you do patches is you stitch. So on the machine, if we follow the
Maybe
process,
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's
It
water
says
soluble. If you follow the process that's on the machine, um, and typically you would end up having a fabric backing to your patch, whether it's poly, twill, or denim or something else. I would hoop that up initially, like I did, and stitch out the little Winnie the Pooh face, right? And then the placement stitch around him. You take that out of the hoop, you cut on that line. And then for the second hooping, you're going to hoop up a heavy water soluble stabilizer. And you guys still have patch kits at the store, don't you, Cher?
I think we sold out of them, but we can order them.
Okay. So they have a patch kit you can get. I got one from there, but it's a heavy water soluble stabilizer. It kind of looks like really heavy duty plastic wrap for the kitchen. You stitch directly on that, so that's going to be your satin stitch, right? And then when you're done with it, it pops out like a perforated sticker. And then there's an iron-on fusible in that kit, and you iron that onto the back of the patch, remove the backing paper, and then you I would put a pressing cloth on your patch, and then apply it with the heat press or the iron. Yep. Good question, Sissy.
Patches
All
are
right.
so you can attach them to pretty much anything.
Yeah, they really are fun. And if you're trying to get some ideas on patches, honestly, just pop into Etsy and do a quick search for patches. There's like, I don't even know how many thousand vendors who are selling patches and all different kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and even if you have a logo and you can use this feature on the machines to do your own kind of patches.
Yep. That's absolutely true. All right, should we keep going? Believe it or not, we're not even done with the Stellaire. All
All
right.
righty. Put you
Another
on.
pop
Okay, good.
back over to the Stellaire then. All right, let's see, what do we have? All right, so you know what? Let's go back to the big overhead camera because I want to start talking about the My Design Snap app, okay? So for those of you who have the Stellaire, you know that you don't have a camera on your machine. And so this free app that's called My Design Snap, you can see the icon for it on my phone right here. That is what you use to position your designs in the hoop, right? To get them in the place that you want. It's also the way that you can send drawings and whatnot over to your machine to convert to stitches in My Design Center, okay? So we're going to start off with a couple of examples. So here you can see I've got a 4x4 hoop for the Stellaire. Those of you who have the Luminaire will be like, oh, what are those black shapes on there? Those are actually registration marks that the Stellaire uses in concert with this My Design Snap app to get your position placement. All right. So we're just going to open up My Design Snap here real quick. Just take a couple seconds on my phone. And then I'm going to connect it to the Stellaire. Give me 1 second here. Of course, it was connected to the Stellaire before this. All right. The problem with having the two machines next to each other, and they're both trying to connect. Hold on, I'm going to turn the Luminaire off for a second, and that should help me connect back to the Stellaire. All right, let's see.
That's like when I'm trying to send a design over wirelessly at the shop. I have to really pay attention to the name. But that's the good part. You can name your machine. So I have one that's named like Bubbles or some random names.
That is true. All right. This is really kind of funny. I did this like 400 times today and didn't have this happen. So of course now it's going to.
While she's getting that to connect, does anybody have any questions on the Artspira, or I'm sorry, not Artspira, but the Brother Connect app? On any of those, have you tried it or anything like that? Have you had anything that you have questions on? I know I really like these apps because whenever I walk away from my machine, especially at home, I can go and do dishes while it's stitching, and then I can get notifications that it's done or either that, a thread broke. So that way I can really stay on top of it stitching and get it done faster and be more productive.
Yep. I think I might have found out what I need to do here, Sarah. It's just going to take it a second to reconnect.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'm just going to skip on to some specials if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to announce a couple specials while we're on here. I promise I won't take too much of your time. There is a bunch of accessories you can get for this machine. I'm just going to name a few today. We have the magnifying lens. She is going to show later today. We have these available in store. They are great. She's going to mention them later, so I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about them. But it does make it easier so you can see that needle eye and you can see everything that's going on right there. We also, we haven't talked about the Luminaire yet, but it is coming up. So we have these Luminaire. These are the new XP3 playbooks, the new version. So this has videos on it. You have some designs, and it also has step-by-step projects and like step-by-step work-throughs that allow you to get to know your machine better and to just fall in love with it and see all the capabilities that you have with this machine. So Miss Pam said she loves hers. Murphy's Law. If I turn my back on it to do something else, something goes wrong. That's normally what happens, Miss Sissy.
Oh, that's funny. All right. So I've reestablished connectivity when you're ready.
Okay. All right. So we have those products, tons of accessories that I didn't mention that we have in store. If it's not in store and you're interested in it, you can just give us a call. Our number is 850-830-4815. That's Ruthie's number, or you can call the shop at 850-403-7332. We have tons of machine specials. I know most of y'all have bought machines from us. You know how many goodies we give. You will leave with a car loaded, let me tell you. So yeah, that is our specials. And if you're interested, you can always give us a call. We can give you more information, tell you about the machines, about the products and stuff like that. So that is my specials. Thank y'all for listening. And back to Miss Tina.
Oh, and when she says a car full, I have a van full, and I got a van full of stuff. I may not live long enough to use all the stuff I got with my machines from Ruthie.
That's okay, though. Right. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, so like in all things in life, it was user error. When I had to turn the Stellaire on again, I didn't reconnect the WLAN. So once I did that, it's connected. So you'll notice you've got some options in here. We're going to do positioning, okay? So we're going to snap, capture, and here on the screen you see you have an easy option, oops, and an advanced option. So easy is I basically want to position something around this triangle here. I'm not going to use the snowman sticker, so I'm going to leave it on easy. And then I'm basically lifting my phone. It says hold 1, 2, 3. All right, so now it's taken a picture of what was in my hoop, and now I'm going to tell it to send it to the machine. All right, so now it's telling me it sent it to the machine. So let's pop back over to the machine now. All right, and I've got to put the hoop, I can put the same hoop on the machine that I used when I took the picture. So I'm putting that same hoop on. So now I'm going to pop in here to embroidery, and I have a small hoop on, so I'm going to pick a small design, the flower here, and we'll set it. And at this point, I get this message. An image was sent from the mobile app. That was the My Design Snap. Do I want to update it? And the answer to that is yes. And so it's going to then adjust the carriage. And so now you can see that triangle that was marked on the fabric that I took a picture of with my phone. And my goal here would be to center that little flower in the middle of my triangle, right? So I can use my finger on the screen if I want to, or I can come in here and use the move and rotate keys until I get it exactly where I want it relative to, you know, a landmark like a pocket or around a seam or anything else that I'm trying to position it with. So it's very quick. It's very easy. And so that's how that easy placement works. So now let's pop back over, and I'm going to go back to the camera a second and show you the advanced option. And so with the advanced option, this would be where I'm using the snowman sticker. So you can see here, I've hooped this, it's off center, but I want the center of that flower design to be right here at the belly button of the snowman, right? That's what my goal is. So again, I'm in my design snap. I'm going to use it for positioning. This time I'm using the advanced feature here. And I'll simply lift my phone up until it can see the whole hoop, and it has me hold it for 3 seconds. Now it took the picture. Here you can see the picture of what it sent to the machine. I'm going to tell it, go ahead and send it over. It's been sent. All right, so once again, let's come back over here, and I'll put that same hoop that I took the picture of in the machine. All right. You can see here it says an image was sent from the mobile app. Update, yes. Again, it's moving the carriage. Now already it's moved it over so that that LED light is almost right on the belly button for the snowman sticker. That's how accurate it is. And honestly, I'm not even sure I need to move it. I might move it 1 or 2 little clicks in that direction. All right. And then I'll say, okay. And notice when I go, it doesn't move yet, but when I go to embroidery, and we'll go to layout, and here's my snowman sticker here. Even though there's not a camera on the machine, we'll press the snowman. And this is where I have all the options for how I want this positioned, right? Most of us typically use the center, but you could have reasons that you might want to, you know, have it in one of the corners or the midpoint on any of the sides, but you've got all the options right here for you. I do want it centered where that sticker is, so I'll say okay. All right, and it's moving, and look what's happened. It took the design from the middle here, and it put it centered directly over that snowman using the picture that I took from my camera. Pretty cool. It even reminds me to remove the snowman sticker. I'd be kind of curious how many of you have actually stitched through your first snowman sticker or two. I did it once, I'm not gonna lie, I totally did it. But the good news is it's a mistake I only had to make once. All right, so any questions on positioning with the My Design Snap app? It's a pretty cool feature. As you saw, it's really easy to use. It is important though, it's only going to work if you use those specialty hoops that came with your Stellaire that have those registration marks on them. All right, so now let's use it for something else. So we're going to come back over to the camera over here so you can kind of see what we're going to do. So let's say that I found an adult coloring book picture, or in this case, I took one of the shapes that was in my Scan and Cut. There's a cool sewing machine in the Scan and Cut itself, and I drew it out on a piece of paper, and then I took a picture of that with my phone, right? and I want to send that picture into the design center on the Stellaire so I can turn it into stitches, right? So in that case, I'm going to do select image for pattern editing here. And then it's going to tell me to go onto my phone and find the image. So here's the sewing machine that's on the scan and cut here. Sorry, I'm trying to get the glare off of here. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it to send it to the machine. All right. So it's just going to take a few seconds. Now, it even tells me where it was, just in case I might get confused. It says sent to my design center. I'm going to say okay. So now, when we come back over to the Stellaire, let me get out of this here real quick. Let's go in. We're going to start right into the design center here. All right. And we're going to come into the shapes icon. No, we're not. We're using this instead of a scan, and it was a line diagram, right? If I had something with lots of solid fill colors, I would use image, but this was a line drawing. So I'm going to choose line here, and it's asking me where it's getting the image. So it could be on a USB stick, or it could be wireless. I sent it wirelessly from my phone, so I'm going to choose the wireless option. And then these are a number of things that I've sent to the machine recently. The first one here should be the last one that I sent, so I'll select it really quickly here. Takes a few seconds to load the photo. All right, so there's that sewing machine. It's what I was looking for, so I'll go ahead and say set. Then on the next page, I have the ability, just like you do on the Luminaire, to come in and crop the image, right, in case I had some junk on the outside that I didn't want it to capture. And you'll notice that the default stitch that's assigned to it is a satin stitch. That's fine. We'll go ahead and say okay. We can see now what it's captured, and that's a really good capture of what I sent to it. So I'm good with it. I'll hit set. Sometimes you may have something more complicated, like an adult coloring book page, and it may be missing some of the sections, and so you want to sort of retake or adjust the photograph. You can adjust. I would adjust the grayscale to the left, and it'll actually pick up more detail from the image that you sent. But we're good here. I don't need to make any adjustments, so we'll say set. All right, and now it's open in the design center. So while I'm here, I can do all kinds of stuff, right? If I want the satin stitch attached, that's what I have. That's fine. I may want to put a quilting fill around it. So let's go back into the shapes icon, and we'll grab a hoop, and let's say I'm going to do this on my 9.5 by 9.5 inch frame. So then I'll pick one of my beautiful quilting fills and a color. Let's see, what am I going to pick? I think I'm going to pick, I think I like this one. All right, so pick your fill and then apply it with a bucket. And then you have your fill all the way around your sewing machine. We can go to the next page here. And we'll see, actually, I have a line stitch. So let's come back in here. And let's come up to here, and let's grab that satin stitch with black. And we'll take our bucket, and we're just going to apply it here. All right, so now same kind of things that we did before, right? I can adjust the size of my pattern. I can adjust the angle of my background pattern. But that's how easy it is to bring artwork into the design center for the Stellaire using the My Design Snap app. Pretty cool, right? All right, and I have a stitch out for you, so we're just going to kind of come here. Look at how cute this is. So again, it's a shape from the Scan and Cut. I drew it with a pen on my Scan and Cut. I took a picture of it with my phone. I sent it into the designs through the Design Snap app into the Design Center. I added the background fill behind it. This cute little adornment is actually one of the designs that's on the Stellaire. It's like perfect for one of those treadle machines. I loved it. And then I just added, you know, a little text in it to make it kind of fun. And I keep some of my quilting rulers in this little bag. So super fun, super easy. You know, you can also, and I'll show you, we'll spend a couple minutes looking at this. You can also design your own completely novel kind of designs directly in the design center using the shapes that are in there. So here's an example of that. But Sarah, any questions on sending artwork into the design center before I do that?
Let me look. We do not. Miss Sissy said, so cute. SEW. So nope, they don't have any questions.
All right, so let's do a really quick example, and then in the meantime, I'm going to turn my Luminaire back on so it's ready when we are. All right, so let's kind of come back out of here. We're all done. So, you know, lots of times you want to make a really quick gift for somebody, and you don't want to have to source out artwork or that kind of stuff. So again, using the shapes that are in here, I'm just going to show you how to design a really quick, cute little mug rug. So let's pop in here to shapes, and I'm going to pick the little heart here. And that's kind of big. So with it highlighted, I'm going to come into the size, and I'm going to proportionately decrease it so it's a better size that would fit kind of in a little mug rug project. So that looks fine to me. All right. Now I want to put a candle wicking stitch around the edge of my heart. So again, that's going to be these line properties here. And again, I've got satin, run, triple run, candle wick, chain stitch. We're going to pick the candle wick, and of course we're going to pick red because it's a heart. That seems like it should be. And then again, to apply it, we'll just do the flood filler, the bucket, and then touch the heart. Now you're not going to see the candle wick on this page. You'll see it later on. And then I'm going to put a fill inside of my heart. So you guys are becoming experts at this. So in the fill category, we'll pop in here. And I think there's roses, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, look at the roses, super cute. So I'm going to choose the rose fill. Maybe we'll make those pink. All right, again, go to the flood filler bucket and then touch inside of the heart. So far, pretty easy. Now, of course, we need that outside rectangular shape for a mug rug. So we'll come back into our shapes tool. And I really like this one here. The third one over is great for little mug rug projects. So he's not bad width-wise. He's a little short height-wise. So with him highlighted, I'll come into size. And I'm just going to stretch that a little bit this way. I am going to make it a little bit wider too, since I can. And then we'll move him up just a little bit so he's a little bit more centered there. All right. And then for the rectangle shape, I'm actually going to come into my settings, and I'm going to apply a run stitch to it because I want it to join my layers. Oops. And so, oops, let me come back in here and pick a different color because I've already used that color for something else. All right, and we'll just apply and then touch it. And then I want a second fill in the area inside of my mug rug and outside of my heart. So all I have to do is come back into my fill area. And there's a one that's really cute in here. It looks like a basket weave project. So we'll grab this little guy and maybe we'll put him in a brownish color so we can see him really easily. And then apply him. So how easy was that, right? Just a few seconds using things that are right here on the machine itself. And again, once we come in here, if we want to adjust like the basket weave pattern, we might want to make that a little bit bigger here. Loosen it up a wee bit. And then we can preview that. All right, so that's nice. And then we're ready to go. And at this point, all I have to do to stitch it out is press the word set, and it comes directly into my embroidery screen, ready to stitch. Now, I kind of did this on purpose, but you can still see the picture that I sent there from the My Design Snap behind my mug rug, right? And in this particular case, it's not really helping me. And I get asked all the time, how do I get rid of that image? Just pop right up here and click that button, and then your background image will disappear from the screen and you're left with just your whatever you're working on right now. So pretty quick, pretty easy, and lots of creative options with a Stellaire, a really nice machine. So Sarah, what's your favorite machine between the Luminaire and the Stellaire? Which one do you like best?
So I like both. My favorite has to be the Luminaire. I mean, you can't go wrong with that projector. I mean, if you have a collar and then a pocket, you can use that projector to line it up exactly where you need it to be. You have the sewing guideline. I'm terrible at stitching a straight line, but that makes it really good. And then just all the features, I mean, you have on it. Don't get me wrong, both of them are awesome, but if I had to choose, I would go with the Luminaire.
Yeah, I probably would. But the Stellaire, I really like that My Design Snap app. And by the way, you can use that in a more limited way with a Luminaire, you can you can take that picture of the adult coloring book rather than using your scanning mat and send it into the design center with the My Design Snap on the Luminaire as well. So lots of cool options in there. All right. All right. So do you think we're ready to start on the Luminaire?
Yeah.
All right. Let's pop over there. I'm just going to finish
Does
getting my
anybody
stuff.
have any questions on the Stellaire before we switch over?
If you guys are doing what you're normally doing, you probably have some amazing special pricing on the Stellaire that they can call you and get, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. All right. So I'm actually going to start off and do a few things on the sewing side of the Luminaire today. That's where we're going to start. So I'm just going to change cameras real quick so you can actually see what I'm doing.
All right. I'm going to, there we
Take
go.
me just here. Got to do a little swapping of cables. Can't tell I have an invisible assistant who's helping some of this camera magic happen. All right. So here we are over at our Luminaire. And so this is our home screen. Again, just a few general things before we get started, right? You can get to the same information we talked about with the Stellaire, your manual, the videos of how-tos, and the app guides right here on the icon that looks like a video thing right here at the top. And then, of course, you can also come into settings and adjust your machine for things that you like, right? So you can adjust the lighting up or down. A lot of times when I'm filming something like this, I'll turn the lighting down. Right now it's on 5, which is really nice and bright. In terms of some of the WLAN features, I'm just scrolling over to the pages towards the end because that's where that information is. I get asked this question a lot too. This machine actually has a camera on board. And so we'll do some fabric scanning and whatnot later. And people are like, I don't know how to get rid of that background image. If you have that issue, come into settings. It looks like notebook paper. Go to page 10. And if you have a background image on, this delete button will be active. And you simply push that delete button and that gets rid of that image. All right, so that's a good one to share. Also, fabric thickness sensor. Get a lot of questions about that. And so just really quickly, as the machines are being engineered, the engineers assume that you're typically stitching on a flat surface, right? A piece of fabric. And so when we're doing our quilting projects, we're introducing some, what I would call topography, right? With the batting, now it's no longer a completely flat surface. There's a little bit of a curvature towards it. And so if you've ever been working on a project and you scan something in and it looked like it would fit perfectly and you stitch it out and it's off by just a little bit, you can come in here on page 10, turn your fabric, say that 3 times fast. You can turn your fabric thickness sensor on, and what it'll have you do is put a snowman sticker on the fabric before you start. It takes a picture of it in a couple different locations, and the machine actually uses that information to calculate the curvature of the surface of your fabric, and it'll make your scanning and placement things that much more accurate. So if you ever need that, it's nice to know that it's in here. We come over to page 11. This is where you turn on your, we call it wireless LAN. You know, I think more common, other people use things like Wi-Fi, but Brother is wireless LAN. You can go through the setup wizard here to connect, right? You can check the status of your connection here. It tells me mine's active. That's what I would hope to see. And again, like last time, I can come down here where it says app guide. And if I push this, this is where I can get the QR codes for my snaps, my design snap, my stitch monitor, and the new Artspira app. And we'll talk about those later on today. All right. If I go on to the next page here on page 12, this is where I can, you can actually set this machine up. I updated both my machines yesterday. When there is a firmware update available, I can download it directly to my machine without using a flash drive and then basically process it in here. The latest version of the firmware on the Luminaire is this version 4.51. And so again, if you haven't updated your machine in a long time, you may be a few behind. So just go to the Brother support page, put in the XP, and on the download page, it'll tell you the current firmware version. And the way that works is if you're on the screen and your machine has a number that's less than 4.51, that means you don't have the most current firmware and you're going to want to update your firmware. Okay. And again, firmware updates are completely free of charge. And they're going to do things like adding new hoops to the machine, or they might, improve the calibration of the camera. We all, I think last summer, got the update where the projector now, when you're using it, it's real time and it's very quick. So there's some really important features that come to you with your machine and the free firmware updates. All right. So now that we've done that, let's pop into sewing. I just want to talk about some of the things that are in here that you may not have used before. And we're going to be doing a little camera switching between the screen and the sewing field. So we'll just kind of work on that together. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to come into one of the categories that has some of the more interesting stitches in it, something like here where I have some decorative stitching. And I'm actually going to turn the projector on. Okay. And so we're going to switch over and now start looking at the bed of the machine. And I'm just going to try not to be in the way as I'm doing this. So let's pick this, a decorative stitch here. So you can see it's interesting. I can actually be auditioning a decorative stitch directly on my fabric before I take the first stitch. And I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times when I'm using decorative stitches, I'm not really sure until I stitch it out if it's the right width or the right length. And I don't want to stitch a bunch and then have to rip it all out. So I really appreciate this, that I can see it directly on my fabric. I can, if I'm able to, I can make adjustments, with the sensor pen here to the width or the length of my stitch. And I can see those update for me real time. I can even come over here and I can be looking at multiple stitches at the same time. And I can scroll through different stitches until I pick the one that I want to work with. So the projector on the sewing side is super helpful when you're using the decorative stitches, so you know exactly what to expect before you take a stitch, right? Now, I'm going to pop back, and just so you guys know, I'm going back to stitch 1-03, which is a center needle position run stitch. I'm turning the projector off, and then really quick on the screen, I'm going to turn the grid line on. So this is a sewing type of guide. So we'll stay here at the screen for a minute. So when you come in here, main is typically where your stitches are being laid down, and sub is a second line that kind of guides you, right? And so your line can be a straight line or it can be a dot. You can have it long, medium, or short for the length, and you have the choice of setting it in 3 different colors. And basically you pick the one that shows up the best on the fabric that you're stitching on, right? So let's go to the sub line, because this is where it gets kind of fun, right? So let's say I'm doing a project and I want to have a 1/2 inch seam allowance and I don't remember how to adjust, and I don't remember what it looks like on my stitch plate or any of that kind of stuff. I can come in here, and by the way, plus or minus signs to adjust the width. And when you get to the common things like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch, and an inch, you'll see not just the metric, but you'll see the English measure in here too, right? So let's look at some of the options. So we're going to start with a single line. And so and again, I can adjust the color of the line for this one as well. But then in my sewing field, you can see that I've got 2 lines. So my stitches are going where the green is. And if I wanted a perfect 1/2 inch seam allowance, I would run the edge of my fabric right on that red line. And then I would have a perfect 1/2 inch seam allowance as I was sewing, right? So then let's pop back over the screen and look at a couple of the other options. So next up, you have the grid. Whoops. And this is really cool. I helped out in a classroom with Angela Wolf a couple of weeks ago at one of the quilt shows, and she had them basically quilt faux suede for a jacket, and they use this grid to guide them. So you set up just like we did before with how far apart you want the grids. But imagine you're trying to do channel quilting on a big piece of fabric, right? You lay down this line of stitches and then you simply move that over so it lines up with this red line and start your next one. So without pre-marking anything, you can really quickly and easily do your stitches with a perfect distance between your rows of stitching. So that's a really handy one. And then your last option on the subline is the angle. So imagine you're trying to do some triangular pieces and it's always so hard to know exactly where you're going to pivot, you can actually project the angle, and you can adjust the angle here for the project that you're working on so that you get a perfect pivot and all of your triangle seams come in perfectly. All right. So these are really nice tools to allow you to complete sewing projects quickly and easily. Now, again, on the screen, a couple other things that we're going to look at here. First of all, with the upgrade, before I even go there, we got a whole new set of stitches called tapering stitches. So you notice I scrolled all the way over here, and there's this new category called T for taper. And you've got 20 different stitch options that are in here. And if you're going to adjust it, you come up here to this one that's called the stitch editor. And then once I choose one of these stitches, maybe this one will be easy to see, then I'm going to go to adjust it with the tapering option at the bottom. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that we have in here. First of all, at the beginning, right, I can select the angle of tapering that I want. So if I come in here to select, you notice here I can do 30 degrees, I can do 15 degrees, I could do 120 degrees, kind of whatever I want at the beginning of my taper. So when I'm happy with that, I'd say okay. Then I go to the end, same kind of thing, and it can be the same or it can be different. It's totally up to me, and it's going to adjust that for me. So that's kind of fun. And then as we go down further, you have 3 different ways that you can stitch it out, right? So this first one says that when you're ready to start tapering the end, you just hit the reverse button on the front of your sewing machine, and that's its signal to start tapering. So that's one. That's in case you don't know exactly the distance. This one, the second one, you can preset how many times it repeats. So this particular one is going to repeat, the default is 19 times, which will happen in about 2 inches. And once it gets to the end of that, it's going to automatically then taper towards a point at the end. So that's another way that you can do it. And then the third way is using the endpoint stickers that come with your machine, okay? So in this case, I'm going to turn this sewing guideline off again and just, well, I won't worry about it right now. But in this case, you basically put your endpoint sewing sticker right at that line where you want the taper to end, and the machine will read it as it approaches it, and it will automatically taper the end. I'm just turning this off real quick because it's a little distracting for what I'm doing here. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to put the endpoint sticker on. So I'm in the sewing field here. I'm going to put it out to about here, and you're not going to want to put it dead in front of your needle. You're going to want it off to the side a little bit, but the machine actually sees it as it approaches it, and it will start slowing down the machine. So I'm lower the presser foot. I'm going to go ahead and start stitching out the tapering stitch. So it's and as it gets here, I'm a little worried that I might have turned off my endpoint sticker, but it will actually read and stop. Let me stop this really quick and just double check here. Yep, okay. It will read and it will taper to the end, right at the end of that line that we marked. So again, I didn't have to manually stop anything. I didn't have to really pay attention to what was happening while it was stitching. It literally saw the end of the sticker. Here we go. It saw the end of the sticker and it automatically stopped the tapering right there. So that, and you can use the endpoint sticker not just for tapering, but for any of your sewing stitches. Imagine you're doing something like a stitch in the ditch around a placemat and you don't want to go into your border. Just set the endpoint sticker off to the side a little bit, even with where that seam line is, and you'll never overshoot your mark again. So really pretty cool, easy to use, easy to set up, a really fun feature. Now, I'm not sure how many of you, and just while we're here, I get asked sometimes, how do you lower the feed dogs? Go in here, and this is your lowering your feed dogs opportunity. Here you see you can mirror some of the decorative stitches using it depends on the stitch you're using. So some other functions buried in here. Now, one of the things that's in here, yep, we're going to cancel this real quick. that I didn't used to use a whole lot was Brother Machines have this unique capability. It's called My Custom Stitch. And so, you have hundreds and hundreds of decorative stitches in here, including some of the Disney ones over here, right? So you've got tons and tons of options in here. But let's say for whatever reason you're working on a project and you want a decorative stitch that's themed to your project and, miraculously it's not already on your machine. Just come in here to your decorative stitches, and this is the icon right here for My Custom Stitch. And it's really easy. So sometimes it's useful to draw it out on a piece of paper. I'm not going to worry about this being perfect. But basically, let's say I want my stitch to start here. It's set, and then I'll come up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, set. I'll come over 3, set. I'll come back this way 5, set. I'll come over again. Right? It's whatever you want it to be. This is not going to be the most interesting. Let's do something crazy in the middle so it has a little bit more interest on it. All right, so do whatever you're going to do here. And then if you want to test it, this is actually showing your custom stitch that you just designed yourself. You can see what it looks like repeated. Again, you can adjust the stitch length and the width here and the tension. If you like it, you can hit the memory key and it'll persist that particular stitch in the machine, and you could use it for other projects later on. Pretty cool though, right? So how many of you guys have used My Custom Stitch? I'm so curious. Anyone who's on today, has anyone used the My Custom Stitch?
We don't have any comments yet. I have played around with it a little bit. I like it.
It's surprising.
Sorry, too much detail into it, but
yeah. It's just, if you can basically, line out the points, you can kind of do whatever you want. I was at an event and I did a bunch of letters. It repeated basically a banner and stitches that you could use it to do that. So there's lots of different uses you can have for the My Custom Stitch, but that is a unique feature to Brother Machines. All right, well, if we don't have any questions on the sewing, I'm going to go ahead and transition over to some embroidery. So let's see what we're going to do. First of all, I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm going to put this on the machine and I'm going to be using it in a minute, but just really quickly, I'm sure I'm not the only person. Whoops. Oh, we got a little camera problem here. All right, let's go back to the machine for a minute. I'm going to put the 10 5/8. I'm going to put the 10 5/8 by 10 5/8 hoop on the machine itself. It's the magnetic hoop. It just came out last summer. It was part of the upgrade process here. So I'm just going to get this guy on the machine, and I've got to change a foot really quickly. So Sarah, maybe you have some questions or some more specials you want to talk about really quickly while I do this?
Yeah. So we had a few comments. Miss Pam said she's played with the feature, but she has not used it yet. And then Miss Sissy says she's trying to learn to sew a straight line.
That one's actually harder than some of the decorative things, I think.
Yes. But the good thing about that is you have that guideline, the grid part, which helps you sew a straight line. So yeah, more specials. We have, as y'all know, when you buy a machine, you get a ton of stuff with it. She will throw in goodies. So that's needles, stabilizer, thread, everything you need to get started. She has lots of specials right now on all different kinds of machines, products, notions, and stuff like that. We have some awesome classes coming up, some awesome Tina virtuals coming up, as well as in person. Is the new Move It Foot on sale? Yes, ma'am, it is. If you call Ruthie at 850-830-4815, she'll be able to tell you the price and stuff like that. But yeah, we have lots of good things coming up. I think, let me pull up my calendar real quick. April 11th, I believe, Miss Tina is doing another virtual on the scan and cut. Just still trying to pull up, but this will be just like one of these classes. It'll be broadcasted on Facebook and YouTube, and you'll be able to watch it later. So that's going to be, let's see, So that'll apply on the scan and cut. She'll be going over all different kinds of stuff you can do on it, as well as make. Let's see, it's still trying to load. I'm so sorry. Does anybody else have any questions while this is loading? So April 11th, yes, at 1:30 p.m. that will be broadcasted on Facebook and YouTube. So, and I know we have some in-person classes as well coming up that are very exciting. So just watch out on those on Facebook and our website. You ready, Miss
Awesome.
Tina?
I am ready. All right.
Okay.
So anyways, I've got 10 5/8 by 10 5/8 magnetic frame on here. You guys have seen me in the store. I love the magnetic frames. It's super easy to get bulky things like quilts on them. It's easy to move across the quilt because I never take the bottom of the hoop off. I just move the surface of the quilt. So it's super, super handy to have. But a couple things before, let's start looking at some of the differences between the Stellaire now and the Luminaire, right? So remember on the Stellaire, I had the little kitty and I wanted to add some quilting around the little cat design. Well, I can add quilting around designs on the Luminaire as well. I just have more options, right? So let's pull up one of the Disney designs. All right, he's a little too big for the hoop I have. Now I have to find, this perfect. All right, so I'm gonna pull up Donald Duck here and set the design, okay? So the process is similar, right? If I wanna add quilting around my design, I'm gonna pop in here to edit, and the same icon I used before. It looks like a stipple stitch, okay? But notice I have several options in here. So the first thing, of course, I'm gonna do is adjust the hoop size to the hoop size I actually have on the machine. And in here you see the stipple, right? So same options I had before. I can give myself a little space buffer around Donald before my stipple stitches start. I can adjust the spacing between my stipples to make it, tighter or looser as is appropriate for the project that I'm working on. So that's fine. But notice if I want something besides stippling, I can actually do echo quilting simply by touching the middle icon here. Takes a couple seconds, right? And it's going to now calculate an echo quilting pattern around any design that I have on here. It does not have to be a design that's on the machine. It can be something that you're bringing in from outside. So that's really fun and quick and easy. And then the last icon over here is if I want to use the decorative fills on the machine. So I don't know if you remember, it's been a couple minutes now, but on the Stellaire, if I wanted to use one of the decorative quilting fills, I had to basically use the stamp key, save it to the design center, open it up in the design center, and then put the quilting fill around it, right? On the Luminaire, I can actually access my decorative fills right here from my embroidery edit screen. So that's this third icon over here. And you notice that here's my select. So we'll just come in here and I can access any of the fills. And oh, by the way, when we're talking about decorative fills now, we have 15 on the Stellaire. This is my Luminaire has been upgraded to the Luminaire 3. We're all the way up to 48 different decorative fills. So, I haven't even used all of the fills on my machine yet, believe it or not. So let's say I want to use number 44, one of the new ones. I'll just select it really quick. And there it is around Donald. And again, if I want to change the size of the pattern a little bit, let's say I want to make it a little bit bigger so I have a fewer stitches, I can do that directly here on the screen, okay? So you can add quilting around designs on either the Luminaire or the Stellaire. You just have more options and an easier workflow on the Luminaire, all right? So hopefully that makes sense. Now, what I want to do next is use some of the camera functions on the machine, okay? So I've got an Ohio Star cheater quilt in my 10 5/8 by 10 5/8 hoop. And I have a design that I have that goes with this particular quilt. So I'm just going to pop into my pocket here. And I'm going to grab this little design here that's great for my little quilt project. So I bring in my design. I hooped my fabric, but at this point, I didn't use a snowman stick or anything else. So my challenge is going to be to get my quilting design exactly where I want it on my quilt, right? So for me, what I typically do on placement is on this page, I'll use the fabric scan. So it's the icon up here that looks like a camera with a piece of paper behind it. and I'll tell it to go ahead and scan and tell it, okay, and that's just letting you know that the hoop's going to be moving so it doesn't knock you in the chest if you're not paying attention. And this happens really, really quickly, takes just a few seconds. And now you can see my fabric that I have in my hoop, and you can see the design superimposed directly on top of it, right? And so obviously this is not where I want it to be. So I can come in here, and I'm just going to close this. I can use my finger to kind of move it into position, right? If you're uncomfortable using your finger or your mouse, I can come in here to edit. And really the ones I use the most often are move and rotate, right? But I'll be honest, I use the rotate one the most often because I can rotate at the top and I can move at the bottom. So I can do two things on one screen, right? And so then I'll just take my arrow keys and make some adjustments here. And I'm trying to kind of keep it in the square. I want the center section to be pretty clean in the middle. And that looks pretty good to me the way it is right now, right? But before I stitch it, when we go into embroidery, I'm going to turn on the projector and basically I'll show you what's going to happen, and then we'll actually have the camera over here in the stitching field. But it takes a couple seconds and you're going to see a window open here in red. And so anything that's inside of that red window, I can actually see projected onto the fabric that's in my hoop. All right. So I'm going to be moving it around with my finger, and then I'm going to be adjusting the positioning of my design either with the arrow keys or with the rotate keys. All right. So let's pop over here so we can see the projector on the screen. And so, you know, there's a few key points, right? I care about the edges. So I'm going to come up here, and sure enough, my stipple isn't outside of the edges. That's pretty good. So let's move it over and check the other corner. Looks like it's pretty good here. I'm going to go ahead and run it down the edge here. And I'll just continue that all the way around my key placement marks. And so, and it looks like it's down a little bit low here. So I'm just going to go ahead and move it up a little bit using my arrow keys. And then we'll just continue checking around the perimeter. Now I moved it up a little bit. So before I stop, I'm going to want to go up here and check, double check just to make sure it still fits. And once I have it the way that I like it, of course, then I can go ahead and stitch. And I'll know, I will know exactly where it's going to stitch before I take my first stitch. So that fabric scan married with a projector is a really handy way to make sure that all of your designs end up exactly where you want them at all times. All right. So let's pop back into the screen here a little bit too. You do have some options on the screen. I just want to point those out to you here. I had relatively light colored fabric in my hoop, and I had a dark thread color. And so it was easy to see the projector using the light background. But if I had a dark fabric in here and maybe a mid-tone color range, I'd be able to see it better with a gray tone or a black background. So you can adjust the view right here on the screen. So that's super handy to know about as well. All right. All right. So any questions come in while I was doing that, Miss Sarah?
No, ma'am. And Miss Sissy said, got any specials on the auto needle threader? Mine quit. Yes, we do. You just have to call us.
All right, there you go. Now, you're going to see when I come back into embroidery at this point, if I'm going to pick one of the decorative fonts here. Do you see how when I bring this in, I still have, even though I'm not worried about my quilt anymore, I can still see that picture of my quilt behind the design. So remember how we get rid of that. We're going to pop in here to our settings. We're going to toggle over to page 10, I believe. Yep. And see a background image. I have one so that my delete button is active. I'm going to press delete and OK. And then exit out of settings. And that's how easy it is to get rid of that background image. All right. Now, both of the machines, the Stellaire and the Luminaire, have some beautiful decorative fonts. You have more over here on the Luminaire. These are beautiful. This is one example. Look at the size of this guy. He's over 5.5 inches tall and 4.25 inches wide with lots of really pretty detail. Depending on the hoop that you're using, will determine how many of these you could fit in your hoop at one time. But let's come back out and sort of take a really quick look at some of your other options in here. So you've got this one with the fill stitch and the floral decorations. You've got this one that kind of comes in striped with different colors. That's really fun for like sports teams and whatnot. You've got a collegiate one, so you got fill stitches with kind of a satin stitch border. Again, great for sports teams. You got another floral accent font here. You've got your Greek letters. You got 2 different versions of those. So if you end up doing things for any of the fraternities or sororities, I really love this font. It's beautiful. It's kind of like a calligraphy font, and these letters are giant. Look how big this is. So over 5 inches tall and almost 4 inches wide. Beautiful. This one, number 8's been around for a little bit, right? You've got, it's almost like a Renaissance font. So you've got kind of a scroll work outline and then some floral elements inside. And you even have a split applique font. So these are really popular. You bring in the B. If it were me, and I'd put Bartelmay across the middle, or, you know, whatever letter and name you have. So you've got some really pretty decorative fonts that are on the machine. So let's pick this one just for a minute and let's set it. And let's talk about another fun feature on this machine, and that's color shuffle. So I don't know if you guys have used this yet, but you know, I tell myself all the time, the only thing that has ever stopped me from being an artist is a complete lack of talent, right? And part of that lack of talent is I'm really terrible at picking colors that look good together. And so I like to use the color shuffle function on here. So let's say we have this one here, and I kind of want to look at other color combinations. I'm not really sure that this is the one I want to use. So I come into where I can change my thread colors, right? So I could for sure come in here and manually change all those colors. But this color shuffling one is really fun, right? So I can pop in here and I have 4 different colorways that I can choose from, right? Completely random, brights, pastels, and sort of monochromatic big gradients. So let's come in here with random. And let's say you're doing a project and you need a certain color to be in here. You can actually pin it and it'll just change the other colors. I don't really need that. I don't need any of them pinned, so I'm just going to let it do its thing. So, you know, I'm in here and I kind of think, well, this one's kind of fun. So I can touch the little heart and favorite it. And then I can refresh and get some other options. And now I think this pink one's kind of fun. And I can kind of keep doing that. And now I really like this one. And then at the end, I can just go to my favorites. And then rather than looking at all the different options, I can choose between these 3. And in that case, I might pick this one as my favorite. So if you're somebody who's maybe not comfortable or doesn't feel like they're great with color selections, try the color shuffling, because it really is, it's fun to play with. It's easy to do. And honestly, some of these designs, just by changing the thread colors, it looks like a completely different design. It's kind of crazy how that works, but it can look like a completely different project when you're done just by doing something like that. All right, so if we don't have any other questions on this one, Sarah, I do want to talk about some of the other capabilities that you do have on this machine. One of them is the ability to change the stitch order. I do want to be clear as we go through this how this works. So let's say that I want to do a little design, and I know that I want a little bumblebee, and he happens to be in category 13. So if you're keeping track of stuff, here's my cute little bee right here. So I'm going to set him, but then I also want a flower in here as well, right? So of course I'm going to add a design. So I'm going to come in here and say add, and we'll come back in here. And I think the flower that I was thinking about is in category 7. Yep. So let's pick this little guy here and set it. All right. And then you see it's going to do my bee first, but with my flower, let's move my flower down here. Let's say this is how I want to position it, right? So the machine did exactly what I told it to do. I told it to stitch out a bumblebee and then stitch out a flower on top of it. Yet when I'm looking on the screen, that's not really what I wanted, right? I really want the bumblebee to be showing on top of the flower. And so to change the stitch order, just pop into edit here. And this little icon with the 3 squares and the arrows is where you do it. And then I'm going to take the flower and I'm going to send it to the back. And looky there. Now I have the flower is going to stitch out first, and then the bumblebee is going to, here, I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see better. So the flower stitches out first, and then the little bumblebee is on top. Now remember, if I come back over here and I say I want the flower to the front, now the bumblebee is underneath the flower, so that's not really what I'm looking for. So when you're combining designs and you look on the screen and you have what I would call an unexpected result, just remember you can change the stitch order between them. Now, what you can't do is change the stitch order within a design. It has to be between designs. But that's a really cool capability that we have on this machine. All right, so we're going to pop over, I think, to the camera and look at samples for a minute. We got several things to look at. So just give me a second. Oh, we're all black again. Hold on. We're going to work on our camera here. If not, I'll just hold them up on the other camera. Here. I'll just hold them up over here for now, and we'll figure out if we can get it fixed. So here's an example with one of the decorative fonts on the machine. See how pretty that is? This is an example. This was the one that we looked at on the screen in gold, and see how nice that is actually in the black with the blue. It's really fun as a embellishment for a tote bag or something like that. Here's another project using a decorative font. So here you can see you can stack and do a whole welcome banner. I've got some quilting behind the letters, and we'll talk about quilt borders a little bit later. But lots of really fun things that you can do using those. Here's another stitch out. This is color shuffle, right? So believe it or not, the designs are identical. All three of these are exactly the same design. They have exactly the same quilt fill behind them. And yet, look how different they look just by changing up the colors, right? It really does give you a lot of uniqueness in the way that your designs look just by changing the colors. So if you haven't played with Color Shuffle, I really recommend that you give it a whirl. It's easy and it's really fun to do. All right. So any questions at this point, Sarah, or we just keep on going?
No, ma'am, no questions yet. Just keep on going.
Cheers. So now I have to do it manually. Okay. All right. So let's see what's up next. All right. So we're going to start doing some of the quilting functions. So just so you can see the whole process really well without me having to switch cameras 47 times, I'm going to walk you through. I did an edge-to-edge quilting project, and I have videos with side-by-side screenshots. So I'm just going to walk you through on my computer how that works so you can see it. So let me change cameras real quick. So basically, edge-to-edge quilting came in over the summer as part of Upgrade 3 with Luminaire. And it's really fun. So it gives you lots of capabilities for doing your quilting projects so that when you're done, they end up looking like they were done on a long arm machine. They connect perfectly and they fill the space really nicely. So really a fun feature. I actually love it. And so in order to do your edge to edge, just really quickly on your home page, you're going to pop into that embroidery category that you see here. And then you're going to navigate over to category Q. All right, that's also where your quilt borders live if you haven't used those. And so once you get in Q, you can see you've got category 1, 2, and 3 are different quilt borders. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But category 4 is your new edge-to-edge designs. And you've got 10 different options in here, right? And what's nice is they gave us lots of different themes, right? We have a floral theme, we have a leaf theme, we've got sewing and snowflakes and stars and scribbles and stipples and geometrics and flowers and something that even kind of looks like peacock feathers. So it's easy to find something for any of your quilting projects in here. For this particular example, I chose category number 5, which is the stars. And so basically you would just select the one that you like here, and then you would click on the set button on your computer. And that's going to take you to this page. And this is where you tell the machine a little bit about your quilt, right? So option number 1 at the top, you tell it how wide, and this is not including your borders. This is the center part of your quilt. Tell it how wide it is. And notice how big of a range we have, something as small as 7.87 by 7.87 inches and as big as a Super King and a little bit more than 118 inches. So you got a huge variety of sizes that are supported here. Then you can go into option number 2 and you tell it the length or how tall your quilt is. Again, you got that same size range. Number 3 is important and sometimes overlooked, and that's make sure that you tell it the hoop size that you're planning to use, because it does all that complicated math stuff for us behind the scenes, but it has to know what hoop size we're using. Otherwise, that's not going to work out very well for you. All right. And then your last option is really fun. That's the flip option number 4. So you just hit select once you have all the other ones filled in. And you have 4 different options for how the patterns connect. And I always go through all 4 of them. And some of the changes are subtle and some of them are pretty dramatic. But you have 4 different options of how the patterns connect between your hoopings. And so pick the one that you like the best. In this case, I chose number 2. And then you'll simply click OK. All right, and then it takes you right back to this page, and this is where you get to review the information that you put in. And so, oh my gosh, if you put in a wrong number, this is a great time to fix that. But you also have some new information showing up here. So for this particular one, it's kind of a small project. So it looks like we're going to have 2 rows with 2 columns in each row, and it's resized that pattern so it perfectly fits. So you can see it's about a little over 6 inches tall and about 4¼ inches wide. Okay. So as long as all that's good, you go ahead and press next at the bottom of the page. And again, it shows you the 4 designs it's going to be using. You get some summary information here on this page. And on that bottom row, you have the choice of single stitch or triple stitch, right? So right now it's on single stitch. That's the one next to return. If you want a triple stitch, it would be the one that had 3 sets of run stitches. And a lot of kids' quilts I'll triple stitch with a bright colored thread because it just adds a little bit more visual oomph to them. So that's kind of fun. And of course, in the middle, if you want to update your thread color on the screen, you can go in there and change the thread color as well. If you're all good here, you would simply press memory on the bottom right-hand side. And it's going to tell you that it's saving your design into the machine's memory. All right, you'll say okay here. And then when you're ready to stitch it, and you don't have to stitch it right away, it could be next week, next month, whenever you're ready, you simply go into the machine memory and you pull out your pattern. And again, I love that they put here in the machine memory, reminds you of the dimensions of your project, and how many pieces, because, if you pull up the wrong design for this project, it's not going to turn out very well. So this way you have all that summary information here. So you'll pull it, pick the one that you want here. And then the next screen you're going to see here, you have the pattern that you've selected and it's bold. That's what I have the red square around. And that's the one that includes the automation features around positioning. So typically that's the one you're going to choose. And I'll show you an example later. Sometimes you might want the individual designs as well. Maybe you're doing block by block quilt and you just want to pull up the block by block. You can access those individual patterns as well. But we're going to use the automation features. So we're going to use that bolded one, and then we're going to click on the word set at the bottom right side. And that's going to bring us to this first screen. And so I'm showing you the little picture of the hoop with what I have in the hoop. And then the machine will say, we're going to start sewing from the upper left corner of the fabric. Put your fabric in the way it's pictured and attach the hoop to the machine. So you say, make sure you remember what it asks you to do, and then you'll hit OK. All right. Then you're going to get this instruction. So it says, basically use the move pattern keys. Those are going to be the arrow keys to align the upper left corner of the pattern area with the upper left corner of the area to be embroidered, right? That's a lot of words, but you're basically going to move that corner of the embroidery design into that corner of your quilt. So once you understand what the ask is, you'll say, okay. And this is basically what's happening. So you can see that light line. I'm trying to line it up in that corner that you see marked in my hoop. When I get close, I typically then start using the arrow keys because, otherwise I go past it. And just get that lined up so it's slightly right inside of your quilt project like that. Once you have that positioning the way you like it, you press OK. Now you get your second instruction, and that's where you're addressing rotation. So you're using the rotate keys up towards the top to make sure that that light line is right underneath the hoop. Let me go back a little bit. That was a little bit faster than I love. So we're going to come back in here real quick, and we're just going to back him up just a wee bit. All right, so this is the beginning where we're moving our arrow. All right, and we're getting that corner lined up. Sorry, I hit something with my mouse. And then once we get over here a little bit, so that's our corner, then we're going to get our second set of instructions in just a second. It's on a loop here, sorry. We'll look at it a little bit more closely as we go on through the next ones. But once you get the corner, you're simply adjusting so that light line is inside of that top line and using the rotate keys on your computer to make that happen. All right. So then you will have stitched out the first repeat of your pattern. Yay. And now it basically gives you instructions for rehooping your fabric. So now you're going to the next hooping to the right. So it tells you that you want a little bit of the previous stitch out to be showing on the left-hand side of your hoop. So that's what you're going to do. So you're going to say, okay. So your first instruction again is use the move pattern keys, arrow keys to align the start point. Now notice this is different. Last time we aligned this with the corner. This time we want the first stitch of this design to stitch out right at the last stitch of the previous one. That's what creates that appearance that it was done by your long arm machine. All right. So then you'll say, okay, so here we go. We're ready to do the next one. So we're using the arrow keys, and notice that we're moving this over so that it lines up right with that last stitch from the previous one. All right. Takes just a second here. All right. And again, there you go. All right. And then once you're comfortable with that, you'll hit the OK key at the bottom. Now it's telling us to adjust for rotation and size. So again, my light line is in a really good shape, so I don't really need to rotate too much, but it was a little bit wide. So I'm using the narrow the pattern key to narrow it up just a wee bit here. And then once I had that lined up just like this, I can also check it all the way down that side, because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I don't sew straight. And so that helps me to know if maybe I need to skinny it in a little bit extra. And then if you want to double check your join, you can go to that first stitch and you can manually drop the needle and see that it's going to penetrate the fabric right on top of that last stitch. And then you know you have a perfect match. So far pretty easy, right? It walks you through the process step by step. Now, of course, we'd be ready for the third hooping. You notice now on this particular project, we're down to the second row. Now, at the bottom of each one of the previous patterns, it stitched out those little crosshairs that you can see here on the screen in black registration marks. And that's what we're going to use for alignment in the middle of our quilt, because we don't have an edge anymore. And so that's what's going to keep us straight as we finish our project, right? So again, we've rehooped it. We're on that left side of the quilt. We can see a little bit of the row above us in here. So now we know what we're going to do. We say, okay. Now, this time we're going to be using the move pattern keys or the arrow keys to align that light crosshair with the stitch crosshair that we've stitched out on our quilt, right? And so now that we know what the ask is, we'll go ahead and say, okay. And here we go. You can see the little registration mark down here. You can see the light line being moved over. All right, and then we're just lining that up right with that little crosshair that's been stitched out on the quilt. Pretty cool, right? Once we're happy with that, we'll hit OK. And this is where we adjust for rotation and size again, right? So there we're using our rotate keys to line up that light line right with that stitch registration mark. Now it looks like the width is pretty good, but then we're going to come down to that bottom corner to make sure that the pattern's long enough, all right? And if we need to elongate it, we'll use the elongate or the shorten patterns to make sure that it stays inside of the body of our quilt but doesn't extend into our borders. Really easy. And at that point, again, you can advance to that first stitch if you want to and double check before you go. All right, so we're almost done with this particular one. So now this is our fourth and final hooping on this particular project. So again, we've rehooped. We're going to be using the move pattern keys to connect the first stitch of this one to the last stitch of the last one. All right, and so we're moving the light line. You can see that last stitch right down there, using the arrow keys to get that one in there. And again, take your time when you're doing this. The first couple, I would, I wouldn't worry about being pretty slow. Once you get the process down, you can go a lot faster. And again, we're going to adjust for rotation and size. So our light line is just a wee bit high, so I'm using the rotate down a little bit here. And you can see it's also too wide. So now I'm narrowing the pattern so that it fits inside of that black line, which would be the seam line where my borders join. And then once that gets done, I'm going to go down to the corners at the bottom. I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand corner and make sure that it's inside of my quilt. And again, if I needed any adjustments to the length here, I would make that final length adjustment, and then I would simply stitch out the pattern. So it's pretty simple. A question I get asked a lot, so I'm going to come back here, a question I get asked a lot is, well, if I gave the machine the measurements of my quilt, why am I having to adjust the width and the length, right? And so the answer is the engineers looked at a lot of sample quilts, and despite what measurement we told them it had, it ended up being a little bit over, a little bit under. And so what they've done is they built in a little bit of tolerance to the process. So you can use the edge to edge feature to do your quilts, even if you're not a perfect piecer, even if your quilts are a little off, in different areas, you can make those adjustments on the fly and still create something that looks like it was done with a long arm machine. So pretty cool. So Sarah, did anyone ask any questions on edge to edge?
No, ma'am, we don't have any questions on edge to edge. Miss Janie says she's late to the party. She was working on a quilt top, but she's gonna rewatch. She's gonna rewatch the video once it gets posted.
All right, so let's go. If we don't have any questions on that, I'm going to pop back over and we're going to kind of walk through the screens over here for doing a border. It's very similar to what we've just done with edge to edge, right? So again, embroidery, remember it's that category Q. You've got 21 color designs, lots of different feathering and floral, all kinds of things in here. You got 5 2-color designs for squares and rectangles, and you even have 5 border designs that are for hexagonal quilts. So lots of cool examples in here. I'm just going to pop into the first category really quick. And basically, the process is really simple. Maybe I want the little roses, so I'll set it. If it's small, fits in a hoop here. If it's multiple hoopings over here, typically those are what mine are. Here you can see for the borders, you can do something even smaller than 5 by 5. So smallest is 4.72 by 4.72. Again, it can be all the way up to Super King at 118 inches plus in both dimensions. So let's say, just for grins and giggles, our quilt with borders measures 42 across. Maybe it's 60 inches long. Oops, not 660, maybe just 60. All right. Again, like before, it's important that you tell the hoop you're going to use. Let's say for this example, I'm going to use the big 10 5/8 by 16-inch hoop. And then I'll tell it the width of my borders. So those can range from 1.18 to 3.94 inches. Let's say mine happens to be 3.5. And we'll set. Then we'll go to the next page. And here it gives me kind of some summary overview. Again, my dimensions, it's always a good idea to double check these to make sure they're correct. It says I'll do it in 20 pieces. That doesn't necessarily mean 20 hoopings. It just means, because some of them will come 2 into a hoop. You got single and triple stitch. You can adjust your thread color here. When you're all good with that, you simply save it into the memory. And you'll pull it out of the memory. And similar to the edge to edge, you can see the individual pieces, but you can see the full pattern here as well. And it'll walk you through, it'll tell you how to hoop it, right? It'll tell you, so the borders are starting in the upper right, and you'll use the camera and the light that shines in there to align and get perfect placement with the borders. So it's a very similar process to what we had with the edge to edge for doing the quilt borders. All right. So I know we're about to run out of time here. I thought maybe we would spend a little bit of time. I've got some more samples to show you, but I also want to talk to you about a couple of the apps for this machine. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the My Connection app, right? So another app that you can use if you have the Luminaire and one of the 325 or the 330DX scanning cuts is called My Connection. And so what My Connection allows you to do is come into a design with lots of fill stitches, for example, this butterfly, and decide that you want to replace some of the fill stitches with applique. So I'm Edit. I'm going to the Easy Applique button. For My Connection, we're going to use the option over here on the right. And then I simply come through the thread colors here. And I know my fill stitches are these pink stitches, so I choose all of those fill stitches, tell it next. So I'm not going to stitch those. I'm going to have a piece of fabric instead. I tell it whether I want a zigzag or a satin stitch or no edge finish, and I can adjust the spacing on it here. When I do the preview stitch, you can see that and this is not meant to be motif stitches, that's just representing fabric. All right, so we'll say next. Again, here it's been adjusted so I don't have those pink stitches, and you see here it's added those applique components. So it's redigitized that design on the fly for me right here at the machine. And interestingly, we do have a no-sew feature. You notice there's a no-sew by the pink stitches, right? It's turned them into applique, so I'm not going to sew that. So I'll say okay, and then to send that cut file to my scan and cut, it's simply memory, and then I have a new scan and cut option here. So I send that over to the scan and cut, it perfectly cuts my fabric pieces, and then I finish out the rest of the stitch out. So it's pretty cool. I really like it a lot. And then the other one that's new, and it's called Artspira. Are we good over here?
You gotta tell me.
No. Okay. So Artspira, let's come back to the other camera really quick. So Artspira is a completely free app from Brother. You can download it from the Apple or the Google Play Store. And it's a really cool app. So it's got free projects, designs for the scan and cut and your embroidery machine that are published every week on here. And you can call them up and send them over to your wirelessly enabled machine directly from your phone, right? So a couple things about how it works. I'm going to get close enough that you can actually see this. Hold my hand. All right, whoops. So cutting, you can see cutting designs. That's going to be for the scan and cut. Embroidery designs are for your embroidery machines. Each couple weeks, they come out with new designs in both categories. Those will be listed here. And then one of my favorite pieces is these magazines, right? So this comes out every couple weeks. You can come in here and kind of scroll through the projects that came out. You can see pictures of the projects, and this one really caught my eye. This little, they have it as a necklace. So when you click on this one, takes just a second, you can see a picture of the project. You can see a video where somebody makes the whole project in 3 minutes or less here. And if you continue scrolling down, you get your materials list, and then you have step-by-step instructions to make the project all the way through, including there's the design. So if I want to send this to my machine, I'm simply going to press here. I'm going to tell it I want to create the design. I want to transfer it to my machine. I think I hit the transfer button. All right, so it's telling me it's going to overwrite anything that I sent there previously. So it's been sent now. So we'll pop back to the Luminaire. And when I come into embroidery and I go to my pockets, I'll go to my cloud, my wireless pocket. Give it just a second, and there's that design from Artspira sent to my machine and ready to stitch. So it's really cool. Not only do you get free content, but you know, you get instructions on how to do projects that you might not have done before. All right. So it's really fun. I did want to spend a minute. I guess I'll hold them up here. I do have some more samples just really quickly. So here's a cute little project, small wall hanging size. You've got a tulip border that's part of the borders and the stipple done with the edge-to-edge function in the middle. So that's a cute idea of something small. Here's another one. So this one, actually the quilt blocks were cut out on the scan and cut, and then edge-to-edge for everything here in the center. And then you've got the borders with the variegated thread all the way around the edges. So that's fun. Rasha, is your question, can you use Artspira with your 10 needle? So if you give me, if you have one of the newer 10 needles that's wireless, here's another example of a panel with the edge-to-edge quilting. And even on the back, you're hard pressed to figure out where these joined, right? So it really does create that image of them being done with a long arm machine. I told you I'd show you one example of why you might want the individual designs, right? So this is that same edge-to-edge pattern I showed you on the quilt, but I did this block by block. And so I was able to also use the individual patterns for the blocks. And then of course you can see I put a couple borders on here. So really, really fun. My connection, just in case you haven't done it, show you a couple things in here. So again, I sent those butterfly wings to the scan and cut. I cut them out, and you can see I'm halfway through, through the stitch out now. So I had a placement line. I laid those down. They've been captured with a zigzag, and then I would continue stitching out the design. And when I was done, I would have something that looked like this. And in this example, I actually put Mylar in as well. And so all that bling and sparkle and shine is actually coming in from the Mylar. But a really cool way, it took about an hour and a half stitch out down to less than an hour. So it also allows you to finish up your projects faster. And then that Art Spira design, look how cute that is. This is the 5x7 magnetic frame that also works on the Luminaire, but isn't that the cutest design ever? I just really, really like it. And again, I just sent it to the machine from my phone. So Sarah, do we have any last questions before we wrap up today?
Let's look. So she said yes. She was asking if the Art Spira worked with the 10 needle.
Yeah, so if you have one of the wirelessly enabled 10 needles, yes, you can send the designs directly to your 10 needle from the Art Spira.
And then she says, asked if the edge to edge will work with the 10 needle, if that feature is built in.
It is not. You have the border function on the 10 needle, but you don't have edge to edge at this point.
And someone asked to spell the app, please.
Oh, it's Art Spira, ARTSPIRA.
And that's really fun. I love all the built-in stuff, and it's so easy to just send it over.
Yeah, I agree.
I've used it since the last time we talked. A bunch of
Yay!
times. She said thanks. Does anybody else have any other questions or anything? You can put them down in the comment section. It does take a minute for them to like pop up. So Miss Tina, what's your favorite feature on both of them?
Oh man. I think the My Design Snap is my favorite thing on the Stellaire because I don't know, it's kind of cool, right? Using your phone to do that kind of stuff has a cool factor. And you know, the thing I do is when I'm shopping, I'm sure none of you ever shop at Hobby Lobby, but you know how they have those really, really cute pillows and stuff? I take pictures and then try and figure out how to do my own at home on the machine. So I like that. On the Luminaire, I'm a real fan of the edge to edge because quilting projects that used to take me forever take like a couple hours now, so I'm really happy about that. But to your point, Art Spira is pretty darn cool, right? I mean,
yes. Miss Janie says, "Do we need a separate account for our Art Spira?" Probably talking about like where she registered her machine at.
Yeah, when you go, so Art Spira, it's you don't really see it, but it does connect through Canvas Workspace. And so when you set up your account, you have different options. You can set up I think using Facebook, Google, or Canvas Workspace, right? So just decide how you want to get that set up, and then you should be off to the races.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank y'all so much for hopping on with us. I've had so much fun learning new stuff from Miss Tina and just getting to enjoy y'all. This virtual thing is so cool.
It is, isn't it? I mean, like you guys have never come home with me before. Now you've all been at my house.
And here's this machine that I have, and here's the other one.
And all 47 other ones are on the other side of the room.
They'll get their screen time next time.
There you go.
So Miss Sissy says, or using your brother account.
That's right. You are correct. That is your other option.
So Miss Lisa said, thank y'all so much. Mr. Larry said, thank you.
He looks like he's on an Australian hike, doesn't he, in that picture?
Yeah. It's a good picture. I like it. I think I already clicked that one. Sorry. Thank you, Miss Sissy, for joining. So Miss Kathy and touching your samples. Yes, she has the most beautiful samples. Ruthie always has to steal at least one.
That is definitely true. I like going to Ruthie's to revisit my samples.
Yes, and you always know, like when you come, there's always going to be one that doesn't make it back with you.
Yep. If it's purple, you know it's staying.
Yes. Or Minky.
True.
Did your daughter like that quilt you made her?
Definitely.
Good. Janie said, thanks to you both.
Thanks, Jane.
Well, I think we are pretty much good on questions.
Okay. So we'll be back in a couple for the scan and cut one, right?
Yes, I'm super excited for that one. I'm sure you have some awesome stuff to show them and teach them. I'm excited to learn some new stuff. What'd you say?
And if not, I will by then.
Yes. So yeah, even if you don't have a scan and cut, that's going to be an awesome class to just join in on. It does connect wirelessly with the Luminaire with some connecting. So that's really fun. That'll be really cool to see. I'm sure she has a sample here or there about that My Connection feature. So yeah, y'all will have to watch that. Even if you don't have the machine, that scan and cut, it will cut vinyl, fabric, HTV. I've engraved in balsa wood. So there's lots of stuff you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exciting.
Well, another thing for you guys to think about, if you have a machine that maybe it isn't compatible with My Connection, you can draw the things on the scan and cut and then use My Design Snap to get it to a machine in the design center. So that's another option for you.
And with that Art Spirit app, you have SVG files you can send over too.
I know.
I'm going to spoil it. I need to stop talking about all the stuff you can do.
I'm going to see your Art Spirit projects when I come see you in May.
Okay. I'll have them all laid out for you. Ready to go.
Cool.
All righty. So I don't think we got any more questions. Do you have anything to add, Miss Tina?
Thank you guys so much for spending time with us. Ruthie's is a great dealer. I certainly have missed not seeing you in a while, but rumor is I'll be down there in May. So let's see each other again.
We're so excited. I'm sure we have lots of signups for your class. You always pack a house. But yeah, I'm glad we can offer virtuals too. So that way people from across the country can see and listen to the good information you can give us. So
this was great. I really had a good time. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
yes, ma'am. Well, let me look at these. When in May? I'm not sure off the top of my head. I can. I'll post an ad soon on our Facebook showing when that class is coming up. And then Miss Sissy said, when is the scan and cut class? The scan and cut class is online like this one. It'll be April 11th. So that's on a Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Even if you can't make that time, you will be able to watch it later after it's posted. So yeah, thank y'all so much. We are about to end this little live. Thank y'all so much for hopping on here, and I hope y'all have a blessed day. If you have any questions, you can still put them in the comments. We will be going over them and kind of answering them. And yeah, again, thank you so much, Tina. I enjoy it every time. You're an amazing instructor. And do you have anything else to add?
No, just I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys all again. And yeah, come to scan and cut class. Let's play Stump the Teacher. Don't make me cry though.
Yes. So yes, thank y'all so much. Again, if you have any comments, just put them in there, and I hope y'all have a blessed day. So bye, Miss Tina, and bye, everybody.